Welcome to the webinar on standard skills-based report cards, the second half, which is doing the actual report cards. We're going to go over today how to set up the report card project and assign it to students, and then we'll go into a little bit on how do you format your actual report card and then print them. So thank you for coming. So we're going to start today under the advanced skills. And under more skill editing jobs, we can come down to the bottom and edit the report card field selections. We need this in order to set up what we want in the report card, so we can figure out which are the skills, which is the attendance, or anything else that we want to send to the report card. So we're going to look at a couple of the projects that are already out here. So I'm going to start by looking at the kindergarten report card, and when I highlight that, all my other tabs become available. And as I hover, it's also going to give me some information about what sort of things are in these tabs. The first one we're going to look at is our school information, and it also lets me know that it's going to be coming from the database configuration. So the license name, it can bring in the school name, and that comes from the actual license file. But everything else can come from the school configuration that you set up. So if you want to be able to bring in your address, if you have more than one elementary school and they're going to use the exact same report card, then you can say, well, let me bring that information from my configuration so I don't have to put out two different templates. I can use just the one. And you can pick any of this information that you want, anywhere from the 3-character school code, the phone number, the address, through the city, state. And this one combines the city, state, and zip already together, so it makes it much more compressed for you. You can bring in your email and your URL, which is the address for the school site. If I don't want something, if I just do a single click, it'll highlight the one item I'm on. If I do a control click, I can toggle between turning it on or off. As you go from one tab to another, it's recommended that you click the Save button. If you forget to when you go to the next tab, it'll remind you, which I think is a really great feature. I didn't change anything, so I'm going to say no. In the biographic, this is basically anything when you're in the little bio button. All of your biographical fields are here. So if I come to the bottom, I can scroll up. I'm not bringing in the year of grad for kindergarten, probably not applicable, but I can scroll up and down, see all of my fields. If they are an MMS field that comes in the generations, then I'm going to have descriptions. If it's a school added field or a state added field, I might not have descriptions that go with it. But if I scroll up and down the list, I'm going to be able to see that, oh, I'm bringing in the homeroom teacher name that I've stored in the student. I'm not bringing in the homeroom, I'm just bringing in the homeroom teacher name. And for kindergarten, that would make sense. And as I finish scrolling up, I'm going to see at the very top that we have the student name in two different formats. One is last name, first name, middle initial. The other is first, middle initial, last. And we're using this one when we're bringing in the last first. But it's your choice which way you want to see the student name. And because I didn't do any change, I didn't click in here, my Save button isn't active. So it doesn't remind me that I have to do it. I'm going to skip skills for a minute and go over to attendance. I'm going to do the simple ones first. My attendance tab gives me the ability that in my daily operations, where I transfer my attendance summary totals, that says take the time frame that I want. So if I'm doing a quarter report card, I want to take quarter 1 and I want to set a date range that goes the first day of school to whatever the date is, and I can process, and that will total up my absent tardy dismiss and put a total out in a record that I have access to, the same as you would with your regular subject grade report card. Same process. But in here I can specify for which of the marking periods I want to work with which totals do I want to see? So I have access to total absences, tardies, and dismiss, and I also have access to the unexcused absences. I don't have access to an excused absence, just an unexcused. So it gives you the option to say which ones do you want to show on your report card. And it's just a matter of you click one, you hold the control key, you click the other ones you want. And here we're bringing in quarter 1, quarter 2. We haven't started bringing in quarter 3, quarter 4 yet, but I can go ahead and highlight those. If I want to bring in the totals, those are always up here where I have the option to bring in total absences, total unexcused. You can bring in tardies and dismissals if you're like. It's entirely your choice which of these totals you want to bring. Okay?
Yep.
And once you have those, before I go to the next slot, I can save this setting. And it just says, yep, I saved it. I can now go to the next piece. Some schools like to see a GPA. Some of them use it as the average of the student grades if they're doing numeric grades. Not all schools do. The same will be true for honor roll. You know, am I doing an honor roll, and if so, which ones do I want to see? Kindergarten, I'm probably not doing the honor roll yet. When we get into first and second grade, we might see some things here that I want to work with. The course grades is where I can bring in my overall grade that's the subject grade. So if you have your teachers that are for the specials that might not be doing the individual assignments, or they might have just a sort of a generic skill that says this is their conducted effort, but if they also want to be able to show that they're going to put in an actual subject grade, then I have the ability to select those also. I'll see more of that when I get into the first and second grade. The skills side is where you can pick up what skills you want to see and for what marking periods. So if I hit my control key, I can bring in the third or fourth quarter skills. And in order to see them here, I would have to repopulate the box. So what that does is it's going to say, take my skills that are in that skill group, and it's going to show me for each of these. So I'm seeing the second marking period, for the second term, so I get a little longer description here, which skill group it is, which is my BSLITK, what the actual skill is, and then whether I want the grade or the teacher name. So it lets me bring those in because different skills could have different teachers. Usually not if I have just the one skill group. But this lets me bring in what am I working with. And there is an overall note for each term. So I can bring in the note, but not necessarily the teacher, because I'm probably going to have the homeroom teacher as the teacher name. So if I repopulate it, it highlights everything. And I might not need the teacher a whole bunch of times. So that's where I can come in and just alternate everyone down, every other line. I'm holding my control key down to deselect the teacher for each skill. And the reason I'm doing that is it just, when I go to insert the merge field, I don't have all of these teachers that I have to go around. It takes time now to unselect them, but later it's going to be a big help. The note,
okay.
Go ahead.
So in this screen, I should be seeing all of the skill groups that I have set up.
Correct.
Okay, so we're taking the teachers off because there's...
It's the same teacher for every skill. So if I have my my English skills that I'm working with, and those English skills are oral expression, I have speaks in an audible tone, expresses ideas clearly, Under written expression, I have uses grammar correctly, uses correct sentence structure, punctuation, capitalization, shows growth in writing. Under listening, they listen attentively and they follow directions. Each one of those skills has a teacher assigned with it. It's just the way they happen.
The individual skill or the skill group?
It's actually the skill group, but the way this is set up, it shows me each and every one. And that's because we don't always want all of them. If I had inadvertently left all of my skills checked, even though I know they're not needed until later in the year, then I'm going to see that. And so I might not be bringing them in, but maybe for that one I do want to bring it in. I would have preferred the option to bring in the teacher ones for each skill group, and that would have made this a whole lot easier. I believe that there is an enhancement request in that lets me choose which items I want to see, so I don't have to do this every time. Okay? Now the other thing I want to mention is on the notes. Your notes for the teachers are free form and they will grow as big as you need. The physical limit per note is a gig, which is basically about the size of the entire War and Peace novel. And I'm hoping your teachers aren't typing quite that much. But if you have a set area on your report card of where you want to put the notes, you can over here on the right limit how many characters the teachers will, it'll tell the teacher how many characters are going to print on the report card. So you can come down and say, okay, I only want 250 characters to print, which all things considered is still a decent sized paragraph. So when the teachers come in, I can come in and say, oh, I only want 250 characters, or I only want 150 characters. The teacher can type more than that, but we're only going to put that much on the report card. If you don't put any number there, then you're saying there is no limit. And depending on how you set up your report, depends on whether that rectangle, that cell that you're going to put the note into, whether it will expand if it goes over that or not, because that can modify your layout. Okay? So it gives me the option. And then we're going to save it. So you head up each, I did too say, okay. You're going to go into each of your tabs as needed and decide what you want to see. You come back to the report card project name, and then you come to the bottom and you build the text file, the source for doing the merge. And it lets me know that it brought in 122 fields. If I had not taken all those teachers out, I probably would have had 200 some odd. So it just means less that I have to wander through when I do my actual report. If I want to print what those fields are to make it easy when I do my merge, I can come over and hit the print button. And what that does is it's going to show me for the project I'm highlighted on and what the name of that text file is, or the name of the Word document that I'm going to use. It then shows me the information I brought in. What's in the EMF, EMA, CMB, CON. This is what's in the biographic. I'm bringing in the student name and the homeroom teacher name. What are my skills that I'm bringing in? I'll go through a whole bunch of skills, and I have the first marking period, the second marking period. Here it gives me the longer, this is the skill group, and these are the individual skills that I'm going to work with. So it's going to show me that for each of the courses. It shows me what attendance I'm bringing in. And in this report card, that's all I have. But I can print this so I have it as a reference when I go to import. So I know what I'm going to insert where in my merge file. If I look at the report card for the second grade, I can come in and see whether I want honor roll or GPA. Am I bringing in course grades? So for second and first grade, I'm bringing in some of the grades. So here I have the option if I want to see the grade. I can see whether or not I want the comment text of a canned comment, whether or not I want to see the note, and again I can limit it, and whether I want to see just the comment code, because I might have a key somewhere else on the report card that shows them what those comment codes are. So I can bring either one, and in here I can bring in the teacher name. The left side is I say which grade bins do I want to do this for. So I can come in and say, well, I don't need final averages, mid-year average or exam. I don't need my semester 2, but I do want quarters 3 and 4. And I would repopulate the boxes. So for the courses that I have selected, which is pretty much everything except kindergarten, and I would select those by selecting the first one or the bottom one, go to the top, select the other one or whatever order I want to select them in, and then I can use my control key, hold that down and click on kindergarten and get rid of kindergarten. So it lets me pick and choose what I want to see. If I bring the teacher name in from the subject, then I only have the teacher once. So it makes it a lot easier. Because maybe for my art, computers, health, I might want to show the teacher because it's different than the regular homeroom teacher. When you're bringing in the subject grades, you can pick which grade point value group you want to bring them in from. And you can indicate whether you want the full grade or the alternate grade. The full grade could be numeric. My alternate grade can be letter. So it might be that the various assignments that the teacher has entered have given the student a 94 average. Now, depending on the school, that could be an A. It might be an A minus. All depends on what your pattern is that you set up. So that's all you need to do here. And because I repopulated, I have not only my quarter 1s and quarter 2s, but as I continue down, I would also have quarter 3 and quarter 4. So it just depends on what I want to see. I can save that. The attendance in the first and second grade, I'm also tracking. I'm tracking tardies and days present, but not unexcused. I'm not splitting out the unexcused separately. So I'm going to show how many days they're present, how many absences, and how many tardies. And I do that again for each quarter. So it gives me that option. Skills-wise, I have my different skills for each of the different areas. I don't need the kindergarten skills because it's a first and second grade. So I can make sure I take that out so it's not here. But I have my other skills that I want to select. And I can again bring in third and fourth. And then repopulate. So you do the same thing you did on the other one for kindergarten as you come through. Get rid of the name. Now this one I don't think they had any notes. So it's just a matter of, thank you, just the actual grades. And the note all depends on whether or not when they set up the skill group and the individual skills was whether or not they checked they wanted to include notes. And what's nice with the toggle is it just lets you go from one to the next. If I selected the wrong one, I just click on it to include it again, and that lets me work with that. Now I'm still in the first marking period. but because each of my subjects has its own skills. So I'm doing my conduct and effort for computers, my conduct and effort for foreign language. I have my promotion, doubtful, or a conference was requested, and I do all of those down for quarter one, and then I would continue for the rest of them. I'm not going to do all of them right now. I'm just going to do that far. I have a question of whether or not we need to build the attendance totals prior to selecting the fields under the attendance tab. And the answer is no, you don't need to build them first, but you will need to calculate them. You will need to do that process before you print your report cards. So if the marking period ends November 4th, then, and report cards might not be going out till the 10th, maybe on the 8th or the 9th, I'm going to go ahead and transfer my attendance. And that way those numbers will be out there ready for the homeroom teacher or for a parent to go ahead and print to show what do they have up there so far. So that's very, very much doable. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save. I didn't get rid of all of them. And we're going to see that when I come back over to my project name and rebuild, I'm going to have a much higher field count. My biographical information for my first and second grade report card is I'm bringing in the school year. So I would be able to see the 10-11, so I don't have to change that on the report card each time. I'm going to bring in the homeroom teacher name, and I'm going to be bringing in the student's name. Now on this report card, it's first, middle, initial, last. Where on the kindergarten, it was last, first, middle, initial. School information, I'm just bringing in the school name. When I come over to the project, I'm going to go ahead and build. And I'm up to 563 fields. Because by the time I bring in all my subject grades and all my skills, and I'm doing 4 quarters, it's, oh, just a few there. So it can be worth the time to take out the homeroom, the teacher name from the skills, because it just cuts that list down tremendously. Again, I can print to show what's out here. So there's the school information, there's my biographical, the individual skills that I want to bring in, and there's going to be a whole lot of pages of those, because I'm doing first marking period, second marking period, third and fourth. And then I'm going to get into the course grades, where I'm seeing for each of the grades I want to bring in the appropriate quarter grade for each subject. And if I find I don't need the overall grade, if I'm saying on handwriting or on art computers, if I'm only doing the conduct and effort and I'm not giving them an overall grade, then I have the option of not bringing those in when I do my course grades. And that cuts down on the list of what I'm working with. So it just makes it nice for me to be able to know what I'm working with. If I'm setting up a new report card, then I can give it a name. So I might be doing grades 3 to 4. And I can come in and select from my report card my doc report cards folder which ones I want. Now this one they're showing here is actually grades 3 to 8. So they have sort of a generic report card that goes for the whole thing. You might opt that that's a good place to start, but it's not what I want to continue with. But this pathing is usually under the local C drive, and that's the C drive of the server, INETpub, www.root, MMSGB for our gradebook, and then the doc report cards. This is where we store the Word documents and the text files that I'm building as my source. So I want to do that and or give myself access to it. So I can go ahead and add that in. If I know I want it to be 3 to 8, I can actually make that change and add it in. When I highlight this, I can actually say, well, I want to copy one to another. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to highlight grades 1 to 2 and I want to copy it. Then I'm going to come down to 3 to 8, and I want to paste it. And that just means that all my setup work is going to be already done. So if my 3 to 8 layout is similar, is it already selected the school name and or the school year? The bio is set up the same as what I worked with. My skills are all there. I might have to do something different with different skills, but my attendance is set up, my courses are set up, so it's already ready to go. And it might be the only difference I need to do is a little bit of difference in the course grades and in the skills. So this is a great way to say, okay, here's my template, pull it all in, and I'm ready to go. So it makes it nice that it's that easy to set up another project. The Word document does need to be either a DOC or a DOCX. Now, whether you're using Microsoft Word, Google Word, or any other program, as long as it ends, the file extension is DOC or DOCX, go right ahead. Any of those will work. So now that we have report card projects, and the minimum I need to give to the students is I need the name of the project. Once I have these, I can use the X in the corner, and now under Advanced Skills, we can go to Operations and mass assign or assign the report card name to our students. So it lets me select what report card I want to work with. So if I say I want to take the kindergarten one, I can come over to my Edit Condition and come in maybe and pull it based on the grade level. So the first G let me find the first field that was in G's, and then I can come down and select grade level and say I want it to be equal to kindergarten, which I don't have anybody. So we're going to go the other way and do it to my third, fourth, and fifth graders. So I want to apply this to what I'm working with. And then I'm going to come over here and change the report card. So my condition is my grade level is equal to 3, so I'm going to give them the 3 to 8 report card. And I can go ahead and process, and even if I don't do a student range, it will only do those where the student's grade level is equal to 0-3. And it can come through and go work with the report card. So 84 kids did not meet the criteria, but 19 of them did. So I have 19 kids now with this report card associated with them. If I'd wanted to not do the condition, I can clear my condition. Come back over here, use the same report card, and maybe this time I want to do a student range so I can sort by year of grad and say, okay, at this elementary, 4th grade this year is my 5th graders. So 2019 are my 5th graders, 2020 is the 4th, and 2021 is my 3rd graders. Therefore, when I look for 2022, I can deselect from here down and say, oh, take these 52 kids, click OK, and go ahead and process. And it will let me know it's going to add this. Do I want to proceed? Yes. And it says, wait a minute, some students already have a name stored. Do I want to overwrite the old one with the new one? And I'm going to say yes. This would apply as you roll from one school year to the next, that last year's 2nd graders need this year's 3rd grade report card, or last year's kindergarten need the 1st, 2nd report card. And that's where it makes it easy. If I exit, under biographical, print biographical list by field report, you can print, say, by my grade level or by homeroom, whichever one you'd like to work with. And you can also include the SB, which is my SB GRC, which is the skills-based grades report card name. When I print, that's going to show me for homeroom 103, here is everybody with a 1st to 2nd grade report card. And those are actually 1st graders this year. If I go to the next report card, next room, I can see what they are. So it lets me very quickly see which report card goes with which student. And sometimes it'll let me catch up of, wait a minute, Jacqueline has a kindergarten report card. Either she's in the wrong homeroom or she's got the wrong report card. But it very nicely lets me see what's going on. So it makes it nice. Once the report cards are associated with the students and or the skills are associated with the students, under Advanced Skills you can actually print a skill grade student record listing. So I can come in and say, oh, show me the kindergarten skills for Jackie Abbiatici. So I'm going to go select just Jackie, and I can go ahead and print, and I can opt whether to show the student who has no grades or notes or not. What this does is it gives me sort of a wordy one that says, here's the list of my skills and what grades they have. Now, if it's grayed out like here, or for these three, that means that they aren't applicable for those marking periods. But it gives me a nice quick, this is where they're at. So I can see that Jackie is at a first level writing, and she might be at a different level for math or reading. And so from page to page, I'll see which ones are out there. If I looked at her brother, he has a first and second grade report card. I'm going to see a lot more, and there's none there for him. So I'm going to say yes, include it anyway, so I can see what sort of grades I have out there. Well, because he doesn't have kindergarten. That was my problem. I want to do everything else but kindergarten. So when I print, I can see for each skill group the course and section it's assigned to, the name of the course, and what the skills are, and what's been filled in, what isn't. Because the skill group, even though it has the course and section, it's really keyed on the skill group and the skill number. The problem you have is if you have more than one skill group, you have the same skill group assigned to more than one course, because it's sort of up in the air which course that it actually brings in or which section that it brings the skills in from. Because it's like, I know I have it, I go in, I see it, but why is it not printing? So if I come in here, I might find, oh, I had that same skill group assigned to two different courses. That's why I'm having a problem. But this will show me because I'll have the skill group twice, and it'll be associated with two different courses. So even though my skills are the same, I'm still doing for foreign language effort and conduct. For health, I'm doing effort and, conduct and effort. It's the same two things. I need them separate because it's two different courses. When you have a student who moves between sections, they move from one room to the other for some reason, you can replace one section with another, and it will ask you, do I want to move the skills? Do I want to move the subject grades? Which makes it really nice to be able to do that. So this just gives you a nice quick way to be able to see that. Okay? Other comments on this before I get into the report card part of it? Okay. Next up, we're going to come into a little bit on the admin portal. So in here, I can log in as my administrator. And as long as the default school and the school that is opened by default has the skills and or the subject grades, I will have both items at the top of my administrator when I finish logging in. If not, I might need to manipulate so I can have them both there. Under my skill grades, I can set the bin dates, the skill grades bin dates. And what this allows me to do is for each of the marking periods, I can give a valid date range that when they are open for the teachers to be able to enter the skill grades. Some schools, they only put the skills open for the couple of weeks before report cards are due. Others leave them open for the entire year or the entire marking period, and that's entirely your choice. So the skill that's in the first bin for report cards or for the skills are also corresponding to the gradebook bin of quarter one. So it lets me associate one to the other. And I do that for each of my areas. Do remember that if you end up with snow days or other reasons why the end of the term is delayed, you probably need to come in here and change your ending dates. But this is set up once per school, and actually I'm looking at the high school for the moment. If I go over to the elementary, I'm going to see I went from quarter one, so now I have first, second, third, fourth, and my appropriate terms. So the first term or the first grade in the skills corresponds to my quarter one grade when I'm doing my subjects. So it gives me that opportunity. Now I can just type the date in, or I can use the little calendar and be able to pick it from there. And then I can do forward and back depending on how much I want to go. Okay? Makes it nice to be able to pull that in. After I do the skill grades, bin dates, I need to activate my subject grades if I'm going to put out subject grades. Now these bin dates and the subject grades are everyone in the school. I can't have it by grade in the sense of first and second grade can't have a different time frame than third through eighth. They're going to set them up all the same. But in here, depending on the grade plans, if I'm doing full subject grades with assignments and so on, I can come in and say which ones do I want to be active. So if I want my quarter two to be active, because that's where I am right now, I just check that area. A lot of elementaries don't have the individual quarters or semester courses, but if you do, you would do the same sort of thing that you would open them up. The final grade, if I'm putting those in, I might hold off and turn those on at a later time. But that's entirely up to you how much of this you want to turn on. So it's real easy to set that up. Once those are there, then the teacher can actually come in and start entering grades. Just as a real quick, what the teacher is going to see. If I come in as Mr. Hummer and I come into my skill grades, I'm going to be able to see a list of my courses. So if I go into English, I just click on it once. I can come back up under skill grades and I can come here to go to enter, view enter skill grades. This allows me to see a full list of my students. And when I click on the edit grades, it's going to bring up those skills in a format where I can enter them. So there's the plus, the angle, or the square bracket CK, and the minus. So you can come in and say what sort of grades do they have in each of the areas. So the skill group description is in the square brackets on the left. After the colon is the description of the actual skill. So it lets me see what it is, and if need be, it wraps around because it didn't quite fit. So it gives me that option to pull things in. If I had a note, the note would be over here. Once I fill them in for this student, I can go to the next student, and it brings up the next student for me to enter. So it's very easy for the teacher to put that in. If they want to do a new student from a list, they just highlight that. They can pick up whatever kid they want. If they want to preview what the report card's going to look like, they can click the little a magnifying glass, and based on the report card that they're seeing, it's going to bring that up. So you just got to give it a moment while it's doing the actual merge. And the other nice thing is this is going to show us what our merge is going to need when we get over to the other side and we start working with the report card. So when it comes up, you're going to see that the name of the PDF is ID underscore, and then whatever the number is, ID number for the student. So it'll correspond. So I can either save it or open it. I'm going to actually open it. Now the program that produces this PDF, sometimes their margins are a little different than what you see when you're in Word. So even though it looks like it should work in Word, you might have to come out here and say, am I or am I not working? Because I can see right here I'm missing the ending bottom line that I might want to put back in. And then when I come down to the second page, if I go ahead and zoom in, let's make it a little bit bigger, I can see my evaluation codes and my subcodes. And then as I look at my subjects, not quite that far over, I can see that I have my, under language arts, I have my labels for the different areas. I have the overall grade for reading and English. And then I have what the reading level is. So Nate here is reading at a 3rd grade level, even though he's probably in 2nd grade. And then he has checks and or some pluses. He's done much better in the second half of the year, or the second quarter, so he's increasing how he's working. And this is what you're going to use to set up what your skills are as you're going to come in and look at your report card. As I scroll to the right, I'm going to be able to see things like the personal social development or study habits. And it might be, do I or don't I want this indented, which means I need to look at what my report card is. I can have an overall conduct and effort score, and then this is for most of what the homeroom teacher is working with. And then in my actual subjects of the specials, they're just going to put in whether they are, whatever their conduct and efforts are. And then at the bottom I can bring in my attendance totals and or totals for the year. So that makes it very nice. I was about to say they've been out a lot, and then I realized, nope, that's just how many days they've been present for the year.
Beth, I'm going to sign out, and I'll watch the rest of it on the recording. So thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Okay.
So it makes it nice where you can see, I went just a little too far, where you can see things like the student's name comes in, the what grade level the student is on the right, what school year it is. It's nice when it brings that information in for me, the teacher name and so on. So it just makes good information of what you want to look at. If we were working on certain things like here, I can see that, looks like I maybe have a note, maybe I don't have a note. So it looks like they were going to put in a note, but it's not associated with anything. So I'm going to have to see what the CV 123 is for the note, because I'm not seeing where that is and it's not coming in right, and I don't want it to, I either want to take the note off so it doesn't show here, or I want to do something else. But this does give me an idea of what am I going to work with. Okay? Any questions on this before I go over to the report card side? All right, we're going to close out. I'm going to come back into my remote so I can work on the report card. So I'm going to minimize my generations, and I'm going to bring up my Word and actually come into the report card. So it's letting me know that it needs the document from my text file. So I can go ahead and click yes. If need be, I could have come in over here and gone to a new source file. A lot of this, what you're going to see is it's tables. So what we have is just big tables that we're splitting things in. Your choice whether you're showing the grid lines in the table or not. So this is a merge field that is no longer in where I want to insert my merge fields. So I either need to go find one that does exist, or it might have been I had that note in the kindergarten, but I don't have it in the main system, in which case I need to take it out. Or I need to add it back in as a skill so that I can show it on my report card. By clicking on the insert, I have a list of all the fields. So I can, if I wanted to do a grade field, I know they're under GR, so it lets me see what sort of fields I want to come in. I added in the extra attendance information and so on. So I'm going to scroll down to the bottom where my attendance is, click in the square where I want to put my attendance field, and then I can come up to my insert, go to the GPR, and that's third quarter. I want to bring in, and that was days present, so I want my quarter 3 present. And I'm going to go ahead and insert. And then close. I would come, I don't need the extra line around, but I can come in to the next one, insert, type my G to get me in the neighborhood. There's my quarter 3 absences. And do the same thing. I have to close each time unless I bring them into a different area and then move it when I get done. This can be tedious. There is no question about that. Okay? There's no fast way around it. You do it one at a time. But having that printout that shows you what the fields are is going to make bringing this in a lot easier. And there is probably a shortcut to bring up the insert merge field. I just don't know, happen to know what it is. And you can always, as I am using the elevator car, as I call it, on the right, to be able to bring that in. Oops, wrong way. For present. Okay. So now I'll see more attendance, and I can do the same for each of these. There are ways to come in to the square where you can do properties and be able to indicate on an individual cell. Here it's being centered top to bottom. You can come in under options and say whether you want to wrap the text or not. You want to fit the text, in which case if it takes up more room, it'll shrink it down. You can do it the same as the whole table as far as the margins are concerned. You can say a preferred width, which is how wide it is, left to right, and whether you're doing it in inches or percentage. The columns you can specify for how wide is the column. Same with the row. Can I allow the row to break across a page or not? And in the table, you can get into the shadings, and that's where you can say whether you want to see this or not, how heavy a line you want, whether it's the overall cell, the paragraph, the table, or itself. It gives you those options. You can get into your page border versus your shading. So this is how you can come in to different cells and say, I want to take these cells. And if you right-click and go to the properties, you can come in and say, oh, I want to do my shading, and I want to put it at this shade. So you can fill in any of those or make your own if you wanted to get into as crazy as you want, where you can drag this across And you'll see down here where it's changing. You know, what it currently is versus the new color you want to play with. So it gives you that option to be able to play with the color if you so choose. I don't normally get that fancy. So it does give you options to be able to bring that in. And you also have other options on what is the default margins for the cells, left versus top bottom versus left right. Do you want to auto size it to fit the contents? Do you want to allow space between columns? All of those items are part of your merge. We can help you a little bit of this, but not a whole lot. It's not really the purview of our program to work with that. But if I did want to bring in the other scores, I would again click there, hit the insert. This is where I need to know which one I'm working with. So if I'm in EGR3, I know that at least gets me to my 3rd grade. And if I know I'm on health, I can type EGR3RDH. And it gets me into handwriting, but at least that's in the neighborhood of what I want. And there's my special at the front, which I had forgotten about. But it gives me different areas where I can bring it in. Actually, I think that's something else. There's my health. Okay? So I want the grade and not the teacher. So I can insert. Close it. Go to the effort. Insert. There's my effort grade and insert. So not hard to do, just tedious. You have to pay attention, by the way, to the width of the page. Because of what we're using as a PDF writer, sometimes you might need to make the page, if I'm doing, which this is a 14-inch page, I might need to tell it that the length of the page is really 14.1 to allow for the margins so it'll fit properly. Sometimes I might have to reduce the margins between the 2 different columns worth of information to make it work right. I might also opt, rather than just doing blank lines, you know, with nothing here, I might opt to do 2 different tables where this is a separate table from this one, and you have the ability to insert depending on where you are. If I come back to the bottom, if I'm down here, I can insert a break, and I can say I want a column break, which makes sure it starts on a new column. Little things like this can help on what you're doing. Okay? When we were in looking at the table properties, okay, if I go up under table, I can also go here to get to the table properties. The option about the resizing is you would normally want to uncheck the automatically resize to fit the contents. So I don't want those cells to be expanding and contracting based on what's in it. I want to leave what's there. If I get over into the cell, you can opt whether or not to, under their options, do I want to wrap the text or not, and or make it fit. So things like this can definitely make a difference on how it works once I get in there. If I highlight what's in here, I can also come up into here and change my font size or what font it is. So if I don't want to see it in Times New Roman, I can actually come in and change what it is. What's nice with this version of Word is it's showing me the font as it actually is going to appear. Now some of the difference between Times New Roman and Courier is a non-proportional font. So every character is the same width. The I takes up as much room as the W. where when I'm in times, the W takes up a lot more room than the times does, than the I does. So I can see the I and the M are totally different. So that's one of the differences in those two fonts. So it's something I need to take into account when I'm putting something out there. So it just gives you options to see what's here. If I want to insert, if I want to start, say, a brand new report card, I could come in and say new. I want to do a blank document. I would need to modify under File, Page Setup. I might want to come in and say I want it landscape. I don't need 1.25 inches left and right. I might only want 1/2 inch. Depends on what I need on my top, bottom, left, right. And that can make a difference on what I'm working with. I can come in under different areas under my format. I'm trying to remember which one it is. Nope. It might be just that it's not in the toolbar. You move down a little bit. That I can come in here and say, oh, I want to bring in columns, and how many columns do I want to see? So I might want 3 columns. And then under table, I can insert individual tables. And when I do that, I can say how many columns across do I want? How many rows do I want going down? So if I was bringing in the study habits, I might see that I have 4 skills and the heading for study habits. So that's going to be 5 rows and 5 columns if I don't want to shade between. I can do a fixed width and let it automatically do it. Set up how I want it to work. So you can see what do you want to see. And I'm going to say go ahead. And I can have it remember these dimensions for each of the new tables I bring in. So it gives me options to be able to say what I want to work with. Now if I click on the square, I can go back into my table and do my table properties. And it might be now that, oh, I want to do this, but I don't want to make them all the same. I want to go into each individual column and say, okay, my first column, I want to do a preferred width of, say, 1 inch. Maybe 1.5 inches. And then in the next column, I don't need as much space, so I can say I want that to be 0.3 inches. And I can do that for each of the next ones. So now I have my different widths that I can work with. Put in my headings, whatever I need. If this is study habits, I can put in, if I'm not doing an overall score, maybe I am. And if I need more lines here, I can come into my table and insert more rows above or below. Because if I needed 6th here, because I didn't do my numbers right, I need to put in a couple more. So now I can come in and just do my typing. Oops, carriage return instead of tab or an down arrow. Didn't like the way I spelled classwork, huh? It probably wants classwork as 2 different words. But you notice where it automatically wrapped down because I didn't fit? That's something I need to work on. I might need to change the font that I'm working with. Because if I'm finding these are too big, I might want to change out of Courier and go to Arial. And maybe instead of 10, I want to go down, or 12, I want to go down to 10. So little things like that can make a difference. If I wanted to use this way of classwork versus coming up and saying, do a spell check for me, where they wanted, as I said, they probably wanted it as 2 words, it would allow me to do that. And if I change the font, it might or might not fit, so I might need to put more space in that first column. So if I go to the table for the properties, I can come back into my column and say in first column I want to make it, instead of 1.5, I might want to make it 1.65. So it lets me see what I'm working with. Getting the spacing to work is always tricky. And you just have to say, yep, that's what I want. The other thing you can do in your properties is when you're working with your rows, you can specify the height. And you can even say that it is exactly that height. That way it won't wrap when I put more description in. Okay, so if I know I want that, say, 0.2 inches, and I want it not at least but exactly, whether I allow it to break across or not. Now when I put in the next subject, if I could spell, it's actually all there, I just can't see it because I didn't let it wrap. If I come in here and change my font to Arial and reduce the size of it, I'm going to see more of what I put in there. And it doesn't like the fact that I can't spell, or at least I can't type. But that's especially when I get into this side of it, by making the row height or the column height in the properties, by specifying the exact height, especially on the row where you say, yep, I want to make it at least or make it equal to that. It makes it easier where, no, I can't go beyond that. Makes it great when you go in to work with that. Okay? So there's, some of it is just playing to get it to work. I mean, I can click OK. I can come up here and I can preview, and I can see what it looks like so far. Close the preview. I can close out of this document. Study Habits is as good as any. If I'm going to save it, I need to save it where the other report cards are going to be. So I'm going to go to my C drive, inetpub, www.root, mmsgb, and then doc report cards. And this is where I want to save it. And then I'd be able to work with it. Yes. Okay, so I have a couple of questions. Sorry about that. One is how do we convert the report card to a text file to merge from? You're not converting the report card to a text file. What you're doing is in Generations, when you are building the report card project, you're doing your edit report card field selections. When you highlight the project that you're working with and you hit the build over here, this produces the text file that's going to be your source. And you're putting it in the same path that you had your report card. So that's how you create that text file. Once you have the text file, then when you come over to the Word, you can come into the button that shows Open Data Source, And you can say, oh, I don't want it in my data source folder. I need to go back into where I just built it. So I go inetpub, www.root, mmsgb, doc report cards. Then I can find, I did too say open, thank you. Then I can find my text file. And if I double click, it associates that with here. If I want to work on these report cards locally, what I would do is I would go into the folder in my C drive, the same pathing we just did, and I can grab the pair that I want to work with, and I can copy. I can actually come in here at this point with the way mine's set up. I can copy it. I can minimize this. Minimize this. I can right-click and paste them or put them in my own folder, and then I can work on them locally. It's not going to find the same pathing unless I make the same pathing. Okay? And then I can work on it here. When I'm done working on it locally, I only need to bring the Word document back. I don't need to bring the text document back. And if we actually open that, that's going to show me the first line because I am, in my view, I'm wrapping. If I don't wrap, it's just going to be lines going straight across. There's only so much, and then it does wrap because of how many fields I have. But it's going to show me what is the name of the fields I'm bringing in, and then it just uses X's as a sample, just so I have something to work with. So it lets me see what I'm working with. And there are tabs between in here. So it's only the word that I have to bring back. And again, I can right-click, copy. Because I have copy capability, I have clipboard capability between where I am and my remote. And then I can just come in here, right-click, and paste. And if it already exists, it's going to say, yep, I already exist. I want to put the newer one in, go ahead and copy, and it won't because I happen to have it open. But I would normally be able to just paste it right in there. Some schools, what they'll do on their, depending on where their server is, they can create a shortcut, a folder on their desktop. That is the shortcut that takes them right to the server to where these things are. So it's not a problem with that. Okay? So it just gives us different areas that we could work with to bring stuff in. Questions? Other than you're sitting there going, oh boy. If you don't have any questions, then thank you for participating. I hope this is going to help. I would look at, by the way, just before I sign off, I would look at your help for Word for doing things of, I want to work and look at help. And then I want to be able to talk about, depending on where that is, and I want to do merges.
Beth, I think we do have a question before you go.
Yep.
You were saying that you could drag it out of there and work on it locally, but I thought that's what you were doing originally. So could you go back and show me how you got to it if you didn't drag it to the desktop to start working on it that way?
The way my remote desktop is set up is I am going actually to the desktop. So if I minimize Word and minimize generations, I actually can get to a desktop. Not everybody is set up that way. Sometimes the way you're set up is you can only get to generations and you can't get to the physical desktop. And it also depends on whether or not the word processor is installed on the desktop. Because you don't have to have Word installed on the server with the gradebook. You just have to have the Word document there.
Right.
But if you can get to the desktop, and if Word is installed or whatever you're using is installed on the desktop, then if I go ahead and close this, what I would have done is gone under Start Microsoft Word, just let it bring it up. I'm going to go open a new file, open an existing, or I might have started a new one, and I just would drill down to the appropriate location that has it. And then I would.
So, and that, I'm sorry, that'll save me, if I can get Word installed on that desktop, then that'll save me from having to copy and paste it and reload it later. So I'm working within, okay.
Correct.
So
but you don't always have rights to do that. You don't always have permissions.
Okay.
That's a talk to your tech of whether you do or not, as I said. And if somebody is hosting it for you, then sometimes what we'll do, like MFS, what we do is we'll usually set you up with an FTP site that takes you to that doc report cards folder. So that lets you go back and forth with that. It doesn't bring you onto the server. It just becomes a shortcut on the desktop or an area where you can get to that you can then go in and work with it.
If we had a shortcut set up for us, would it have a path that's something like iNetHub, or is that the same path that you were just using? Oh, that's the same path. No,
that's the same path that I was in. You would have, instead of where I have an actual IP address up here, you might have an mms321.org of what you would be seeing. So it just gives you a slightly different way to get there.
Okay, so we have to talk to somebody about possibly setting that up if you're hosting ours.
Right. Right, and you would talk with Mike Dill.
Okay, I've been talking to him a lot lately.
He's the one that handles it. Okay?
Do you have any? Yes. Do you have any idea? I mean, if we get stuck with this, is this something that they can help us with in a Friday forum too?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yep, we can at least try.
Okay.
Thank you for participating in the webinar, and we hope to see you at another one. Thank you.